In the labyrinthine expanse of intellectual discourse, where the nimble acrobats of reason pirouette on the tightrope of dialectics, a tempest has stirred the placid waters of scholarly exchange.
Seen Unleashed, BB RFK Jr., Bill Maher. Wow, people really like Norm Finkelstein. Okay, I'll admit,
very pleased to be joined.
I don't think I've ever covered anything from Norm, but the impression that I've gotten from him is that he's very untrustworthy, in large part because he seemed to be doing like anti-Israel advocacy in a conversation with what's her name? Candace Owens. Yeah. Also, I saw that he was going to debate Destiny, and to be honest with you, like Destiny, I'm sure from the tiny clips I've seen, has been on the Israel-Palestine genocide. But I saw Norm like Twitter posts saying like Destiny didn't show up to a debate, and that's not, of all the problems Destiny has as a person, of the innumerable issues, an unwillingness to or an aversion to debate is not one of them. And then I looked more into it, and apparently it was Finkelstein failed to communicate the date properly or something. So, like, so what is that? Is this guy like a clown? Like, is he just doing a bit? He's a huge hack. He's made up an insane amount of shit he put in his books. Man, it really is crazy how every who's anti-Israel for any reason is getting so much like attention right now, you know? He's a gooner? Well, if he was, I'd respect it more. Oh, Sauger's doing the gooner stare. Wait, he's literally doing the Coomer face right here. Do you see it? This is literally the Coomer grin. This guy is constantly sucked off by squirrel. Well, squirrels are, so it's not surprising to me. I can't watch this because Bill Maher's thing is probably copyright, right?
Very pleased to be joined once again by Professor Norm Finkelstein. He is an author.
Finkelstein is violently transphobic too. Nice. Destiny debated Cenk in Israel. I saw that because I hosted Lonerbox when Lonerbox was covering the Destiny Cenk debate, and I saw 1 minute of it, and all I saw was Destiny make a factual error by underestimating by 1/3 the number of IDF people who were killed by Hamas on October 7th. It's the only thing I saw. I don't know if it's indicative of how the broader debate went, but it was very personally satisfying for me that the 1 nanosecond that I watched was him making a mistake and then being corrected on it by Cenk. No, there was a new debate a few days ago. They debated again? Why? What wasn't settled the first time? It's not like I'm a Cenk stan. Also, why does Finkelstein look like this?
An activist. He is a political scientist, author of many books, including Gaza and Inquest.
He has gone off the rails full Zionist. He's not an actual Zionist. He sees lefties online rallying behind pro-Palestinian support, and he's been negatively polarized in the opposite position. This happens every time. They're not sincere beliefs. Under a different set of contexts, he would shift to a different set. He doesn't actually care, and it doesn't matter. It's such a waste of time to engage with it. It's like shadowboxing empty men, you know? It's like talking with, what's his name? The guy I debated, the guy who was like, Orthodox is different from Catholicism because it's better, and I can't tell you how. That guy. Big Papa Fashion. That guy. Yeah. It's like, you know, say whatever, it'll shift, it doesn't matter. Make hyperbolic statement, then when other people call it out, defend Mott and Bailey back to a more sensible position, like find weak points in a person's argument that allow you to avoid the broader points being like it's the same. It's always the same. It's uninteresting. It's boring. Maybe Finkelstein is more interesting.
Into martyrdom. Great to see you again, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start with, I know there were a few interviews recently, including one that occurred on our program.
Misspoke. I never do that.
Caught your interest, and that contained some inaccuracies or claims that you thought were worth responding to. And so the first one that I wanted to get you to take a look at was a recent monologue from Bill Maher. Let's take a listen to a bit of that.
But eventually, everybody comes to an
trying to avoid...
except the Palestinians.
Oh, this is from... That previous video was a clip from this. Okay, well, I don't want to get copyrighted.
The Venerable Norman Finkelstein, a figure whose intellectual acumen has carved cavernous niches in the granite edifice of Israel's policies, has found himself at the center of a tempestuous maelstrom. Enter Vaush, the cerebral pugilist, armed with a rapier wit and a penchant for piercing the intellectual firmament. Alas, the scene unfolds not on the battlefield of ideas, but in the cloistered halls of refusal. Vaush, like a Socratic gadfly, laments Finkelstein's reluctance to engage in a bout of intellectual pugilism with Destiny, the maestro of political commentary and debate. Destiny, with the swagger of a philosophical gunslinger, invites Finkelstein to the dueling ground of ideas, a crucible where arguments are forged or found wanting. In this cerebral amphitheater, the clash of ideas reverberates like the thunderous footsteps of a Goliath yet to be felled. Vaush extols the virtues of debate, a venerable tradition where ideas joust like knights of yore. The crucible of discourse, he avows, is where the alchemy of knowledge transmutes base opinions into refined arguments. But lo, Finkelstein's refusal is appetted upon the gates of intellectual exchange. It threatens to erect an echo chamber, where the susurrus of homogeneous ideas reverberates, and dissenting voices are muffled like the plaintive wails of a banshee in the night. With the gravitas of a Byzantine bishop, Vaush questions the metal of Finkelstein's convictions. Does the sage of critical scholarship fear the crucible of dialectical engagement? Vaush contends that the reluctance to partake in verbal jousts bespeaks a lack of confidence, a timidity unbecoming of an intellectual luminary. In the symphony of ideas, the debate is the crescendo that separates the maestros from the mere minstrels. The sage of critical scholarship, known for wielding the sword of dissent against the Goliath of Israeli policies, finds himself entwined in a perplexing dance with none other than Candace Owens, a firebrand provocateur whose ideological resonance strikes dissonant chords in the halls of progressivism. Enter Vaush, the astute observer and vociferous proponent of intellectual rigor. Like a metaphysical detective, he dons the mantle of inquiry, scrutinizing the labyrinthine web of associations that has ensnared Finkelstein and Owens in an unholy alliance. The juxtaposition of the erudite dissenter and the controversial firebrand sends ripples through the intellectual pond, prompting Vaush to raise an eyebrow in suspicion. Vaush, with the acumen of a Machiavellian schemer, questions the motivations behind Finkelstein's dalliance with Owens. Is it a Faustian bargain, an unholy matrimony of convenience in the political arena? The probing mind of Vaush weaves through the tapestry of ideological landscapes, tracing the threads of association that bind the erudite critic to the divisive figure of Owens. In this Byzantine puzzle, Vaush seeks not merely the contours of association but the motivations that underlie this improbable camaraderie. The suspicion, like an inscrutable riddle, hangs in the intellectual air. Vaush, with the tenacity of a bloodhound, sniffs the currents of political intrigue. Is Finkelstein's association with Owens a strategic maneuver, a gambit in the labyrinthine chessboard of ideological warfare? Vaush raises the specter of doubt, a Socratic gadfly buzzing around the perplexing union of dissent and discord. The carnival of speculation unfolds in the theater of Vaush's discourse. He dissects the ideological dissonance between Finkelstein's scholarly pursuits and Owens' incendiary rhetoric. The incongruity is palpable, like a surrealist painting where disparate elements coalesce in a dreamlike tableau. Vaush, with a surgeon's precision, dissects the sinews of association, probing the motivations that animate this seemingly incongruous convergence. In the intellectual bazaar, Vaush's suspicion reverberates like the echo of a philosophical gong. Is this a calculated maneuver to broaden the coalition of dissent, or a forced-in compromise that threatens the integrity of critical scholarship? Vaush, with the sagacity of a seasoned rhetorician, raises the banner of skepticism, imploring the denizens of intellectual discourse to scrutinize the shadowy alliances that traverse the corridors of ideological affiliation. The anatomy of debate, according to Vaush, is not merely an exhibition of intellectual prowess but a crucible where conviction is forged. To abstain from this crucible is to clutch the scepter of dogma with trembling hands. Vaush asserts that engagement in debate is the elixir that fortifies one's intellectual sinews. It is the potion that emboldens the arguer to traverse the labyrinth of dissent, armed with the lantern of reason. In the mazy corridors of thought, Vaush warns of the perils of intellectual insularity. To shun the agora of ideas is to languish in the cocoon of one's own certitude, an echo chamber where the walls reverberate with the dulcet tones of self-assurance. Vaush's critique carries the echoes of Protagoras, who proclaimed that man is the measure of all things, and in the crucible of debate, ideas are weighed and measured. In the grand tapestry of intellectual discourse, Vaush stitches a narrative wherein Finkelstein's refusal is not merely a rejection of destiny's challenge but a retreat from the sacred duty of intellectual stewardship. The agora beckons, and in its hallowed precincts, ideas are honed, arguments are whetted, and the intellectual landscape is sculpted by the hands of those willing to engage in the crucible of debate. Vaush's lament is not a dirge but a clarion call, echoing through the annals of intellectual history, urging scholars to unfurl their banners and march into the arena of ideas, where the clash of minds is the symphony that resonates across the epochs.